When both federal and state authorities charged the Alexander brothers, twins, and their older sibling with running essentially a prolific sex trafficking operation, another man was caught up in the legal drama, Ohad Fisherman. Miami authorities charged him with helping the twins allegedly rape a woman nearly a decade ago. But new evidence meant a major shakeup in court this week, and he is no longer facing charges. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Let's talk about Ohad Fisherman. We've spoken about him before here on the program, real estate broker, businessman. He is no longer facing any charges in Miami-Dade County Court. You see, jury selection for Fisherman's trial on one count of sexual battery by multiple perpetrators was supposed to start on Tuesday, July 8th. But on Monday, prosecutors revealed that they were dropping the charge after the defense filed a notice of alibi last week. Now, the charge came about in the first place thanks to a complaint to authorities by a woman identified only as MW. She claimed that back in 2016, Fisherman was present at a high-rise apartment in Miami Beach that was owned by Alon Alexander. So he is the twin of Oren Alexander, and he's also the brother of Tal Alexander. And she accused Fisherman of helping to hold her down on a bed while Oren and Alon took turns raping her. And she claims that when they were all done, they insisted she have sex with their cousin too, referring to Fisherman, although we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, part of the most recent court paperwork that was filed in Fisherman's case includes the transcript from an interview between the alleged victim and a detective. Here's a portion of that interview, and it starts with MW, who sometimes has trouble putting her experience into words. It reads, quote, "And as Oren was raping me, Alon was watching, and then Alon raped me. But I was more calm then because we have already had, but I didn't, obviously, and then Oren sat on the chair. After he was done, there was a chair in the corner of the room, and he said, 'We're not leaving until you have sex with my cousin.'" And the detective clarifies, Ohad, yeah. And I was just like crying hysterically at this point, like bawling. And I was like, "Please don't do this, please, please, please," just begging him. And he was just on his phone ignoring me. And I just sat there and I just refused to do anything. And Ohad we just both sat there. And then Oren got up and I believe he left, told me to shower. He came back and he came in the shower, I think probably to make sure that I was like getting everything off, and I was just crying in the shower. And then he made Ohad sit in the room with me to make sure that I got an Uber home. So MW also told this detective that she was scared of the brothers and seemingly, by extension, Ohad Fisherman. There's also this from the transcript, quote, "And when my sister was like, 'We need to go to the police right now,' I was like, I think I literally said, I said like, they will kill me, like they will hire somebody, like they will take care of that. Like they are very powerful and they seem to have a lot of money. And I was like scared of my life just because of what I just like experienced, not only the rape, but just like how they were." Now, we've told you before about the Alexander brothers here on Sidebar, right? Tal, the eldest, Oren, Alon, the twins, the brothers who come from a wealthy family but also have made money on their own as well in the luxury real estate and security businesses. They have been accused of using their wealth, their connections, their public images to lure women and girls into dangerous situations. And last December, prosecutors with the Southern District of New York charged the brothers with trafficking 2 women. And then earlier this year, a superseding indictment was filed where there was an accusation of assault of a minor. Now, Fisherman was never accused of any wrongdoing by the feds, just county prosecutors in Florida. And in fact, when law enforcement surrounded the Miami homes of the Alexander brothers, Fisherman wasn't even in the country. The Miami Herald reports he was celebrating his honeymoon in Japan. And when he was back in the States, a bond hearing was held and he was granted release. And at one point, he was ordered to be fitted with an ankle monitor, but the judge ordered it removed when prosecutors confirmed he wasn't connected to any of the other alleged crimes that the Alexander brothers are charged with. This is again according to the Herald. Now, the brothers were transferred up to New York on their federal charges too. How did Ohad Fisherman, a key figure in this, a co-defendant, and his defense team, how did they manage to get the charge thrown out of court? Well, apparently, it all comes down to a drone video. So apparently this shows men on a boat, and it was supposedly posted to Facebook by Ohad Fisherman. This is again according to the Miami Herald. And the post, this is based on the sunset, not a timestamp, the sunset, The post allegedly came 27 minutes before an Uber dropped off the alleged victim at the apartment where the purported sexual assault took place. In other words, it's the alibi defense. He was allegedly somewhere else, very close to the same time as the purported attack. And in that post, Fisherman tagged Alon Alexander, thanking him for the video. So according to court documents, MW, again the alleged victim, approached prosecutors to let them know that she had a screenshot of this Facebook post from December 31st, 2016. And because it could provide an alibi and be exculpatory, tending to prove that the defendant is not guilty, right? The state turned that information over to Fisherman's defense team. By law, they had to do that. Now, prosecutors were doing what they could, according to the Herald, to determine when the drone video was created, including sending a subpoena to Facebook to confirm the date and time of the post, as well as reaching out to other people that were tagged in the post. But according to prosecutors, those other people who may have been out on the water that day said they wouldn't cooperate with the investigation. But the Herald reports there has been a huge sticking point when it comes to proving the exact time that the drone video was filmed. And that is that the metadata evidence is apparently in the hands of the feds, federal prosecutors. The Herald reports that the defense has been requesting digital information connected to the men's cell phones and the drone for months, and a judge even ordered the state to turn it over, but state prosecutors seem to claim that the feds, they're not going to give it up. They won't give it up. They won't even confirm if they have the information. So MW has a ride summary from Uber showing the time that she arrived at the high rise and when she left, within 73 minutes in between. And the defense says during that window, Fisherman was basically out on the water. And they filed a notice of alibi to that effect last week. Quote, at the time of the alleged offense, Mr. Fisherman was on a boat in the water somewhere along the Intercoastal Waterway. This notice is based in part on discovery produced by the state, which includes a video posted by Mr. Fisherman to Facebook with the caption, "Riding out, thank you 2016. Can't wait for what 2017 has in store for me. Wishing everyone a safe, happy, and healthy NYE. Thanks at Alon Alexander for the video." Now, after an emergency meeting on Monday, one day before jury selection, the DA announced that the charge against Ohad Fisherman was dropped. State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle said in a statement, quote, "The defendant's presence at the scene of the crime is an essential element of proof, and this video evidence casts doubt on that proof. Given the prosecution's inability to conclusively disprove the alibi, we determined in good faith that we cannot prove the case against Ohad Fisherman beyond and to the extension of all reasonable doubt which is required by law. Our decision today is only as to Ohad Fisherman. The cases against Orrin and Alon Alexander remain pending, and nothing involving the disposition of this case affects the cases against the Alexander brothers." Fisherman, by the way, held a news conference to address the dismissal, saying, "This was not dismissed on technicality. There is no deal, no compromise. The state dropped the charge because they knew I didn't do this. I'm innocent." All right, so I want to get some more details about this whole situation. And honestly, who better to ask than Fisherman's defense attorney, Jeffrey Sloman. Jeffrey, thanks so much for coming here on Sidebar. Appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure.
This has got to be, this whole ordeal, a very stressful, frustrating time. But I imagine in the past few days, this sense of relief, right? How are you doing? How is your client doing?
Well, let me start with my client. My client is ecstatic. He was... as you can imagine, this is 208 days since he was labeled a rapist on his honeymoon in Japan. And news travels fast when you're called a rapist. And he's been, he was faced with the prospects of going to Florida State Prison for 30 years. So the sword of Damocles is the right analogy. And when we told him, he was absolutely ecstatic. He's a religious man who had faith, who thought that he was going to be okay. But until you get the word that you're free, it's you never know until it happens. So we had a sense that the state was considering dismissing, but we prepared all weekend for an opening statement on yesterday, and we worked all weekend. In fact, July 4th was my birthday. And so we were in the office preparing. Saturday, we were preparing. Sunday, we were preparing. Monday, we were preparing. And about 3 o'clock, we got the call, and the assistant state attorney told us that they were going to null pros the case, which they did at 4 p.m.
We've been following this story from the beginning. And one of the reasons that we can do this, to really dive into these cases and stories, is because of the amazing support that we get from our sponsors like Upside. Now, Upside is great. It is a free app that gets cash back when you buy daily essentials. So I pump my gas, I can use Upside. I go out to lunch, I can use Upside. Get something at a convenience store, I can use Upside. And why not get cash back when I do all these things, right? Yes, this is real cash back. It's money that appears in your Upside app that you transfer right into your bank account. So once you have the free Upside app, you claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You pay as usual using a debit or credit card. You follow the steps on the app, you get paid. So to find out how much you can earn, click the link in the description to download Upside, or scan the QR code on screen. And make sure to use our promo code Sidebar, because you'll get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Well, first of all, happy belated birthday, and sounds like it was a good birthday present in the end for this to happen. What has been the impact on his life, in the sense that, has he lost career opportunities? Has he lost friends? Has family turned him away? Because these were serious allegations that came out of nowhere. I mean, they really, when they were plastered on the headlines, I'll tell you, a lot of people didn't know who your client was, and to have his name be at the forefront of what the allegations facing the Alexander brothers. What has been the impact on his life in the past few months?
Well, he's a real estate broker. In fact, he just opened up his own brokerage firm about 2 months before this happened. So while the real estate market has softened in South Florida, it's killed his business. There's not too many people that would hire somebody who's been charged with rape. So it's devastated his business. It's reputationally, hopefully this is the beginning of repairing it. He's, as far as his friends, I think a lot of people have known Ohad for a long time and know he's a good guy, but still, I know that there are people that remain distant from him, and I don't know whether or not those people are going to, accept what has happened and welcome him back into the community. But I have a feeling that he has such a great personality, such a sweet, warm-hearted guy, that he will eventually get back on his feet. But it's going to be hard. I mean, the stench of something like this follows you for a long, long time. I just, I'm very wary that he just, comes back next week and everything's the same. It's not. It has an effect. I've had other clients who have told me that, despite what people do or say, that it's never quite the same. So this is going to take a long, long time before I think things are back to where they were. But look, I mean, to go from the depths of despair to yesterday is just an unbelievable experience for me to watch. And to me, it's so gratifying to see him and his family. I mean, imagine, just to give you an example, his mother-in-law, when this first happened, he had to put up, I think it was about a $250,000 bond. Of course, he didn't have to, bring money to the courthouse or write a check, but it was collateralized, not by anything that Ohad had, but by his mother-in-law. She encumbered $250,000, on properties, on a variety of properties. And I was just thinking to myself, there's not too many people who would believe in their new son-in-law encumber their real estate to secure a bond. I mean, so he's had people who have stood by him who are behind it, but it's outside the family circle, I don't know.
Does he know this woman? I mean, what was going to be the argument at trial that was going to be made by your team? Does he know her? Does he say this was all fabricated? He's had no connection with her whatsoever?
He never met her before. He never met her after. He has no recollection of her. Imagine trying to prove where you were last year, let alone 5 years ago, let alone 8 years ago. And while, people would say, well, it was a New Year's Eve, you should know where you were. We've spent the last, 8 months, 9 months trying to put together where he was on that day. And we've had access to his electronics. We know he was in South Florida. We can't put him there. He doesn't remember, exactly where he was on that day, but he can say definitively that this didn't happen.
Talk to me about this drone video, because some people might say, wow, this definitely proves an alibi. There are others who say, well, okay, it was posted. How can you be sure that's Ohad in the video? What would you say to that?
Well, we know it's Ohad in the video. Alon Alexander sent it to him. Ohad thanked Alon for the video. Ohad posted it on his Facebook at about 9 p.m. that night. The scroll across the video itself said last sunset of 2016. There's no doubt that Ohad is the individual who's water skiing behind the boat, but without the metadata, which would only come from the drone. Okay, it's a live hand grenade in terms of trying to prove that. So we had to think long and hard about whether that was going to be part of our defense, or whether it was going to be one of other. We had a lot of. There was so much evidence that this was all fabricated. And so that was one piece.
To be clear, this video, this timestamp, 27 minutes, right? Around 27 minutes before the Uber arrives with this woman at the apartment complex, as based on her narrative. Was the prosecution going to argue or potentially argue, okay, but he still could have made it there to the apartment in time? Is that something that was even feasible, or based on the location of the boat? Again, I know we don't have the metadata per se, but is that something that the prosecution was going to argue, that he still could have been there despite the video?
Well, let me correct you on one thing. There was no timestamp on the video.
Okay.
The time would have been calculated from the sunset on that day, which I believe was about 5:45 p.m.
Okay.
So that's where you have this. The time frame would have been nearly impossible for him to have gotten off the boat, traveled back to that was the other thing. We didn't have a specific location as to where the boat rental company was.
Right.
It's no longer in business. And so to imagine if sunset is about 5:45 p.m. and it was clearly the sun was setting. So the boat would have had to have sped back to the location where they returned the boat, theoretically got in a car, gone to, mid-beach, gone up an elevator and been there for a rape. It made no sense, right? Mm-hmm, so if it happened on that day, now, and whether the state was now, I think at certain points during the litigation, the state was posturing, well, this shows they were together on that day. And I kept thinking to myself, really, is that what they were going to do? It's unclear what they were going to do. But the problem is that if you're in trial and you introduce a piece of evidence like that for the proposition that a man can't be in two places at the one time, then you're faced with, okay, do you put your client on the stand? Do you jeopardize or risk the prosecution coming in with a witness and saying, no, it wasn't that day. It was 2 weeks before the video was actually made. So without the metadata, it would have been a strategic decision whether or not we would have introduced that piece of evidence to say, you got the wrong guy. But there were so many other powerful things that we had that, it was just one of many things that I think would have been powerful and successful in defending him.
What's with the feds not turning over information about this, not turning over metadata? Can you explain that?
Well, as you can see behind me, I have my former DOJ going away seal in the background, signed by my former colleagues. I was a former U.S. attorney here in the Southern District of Florida. I interacted a lot with the Southern District of New York, and they always referred to themselves as the Sovereign District of New York, and it was notorious that they didn't really play well with other U.S. attorneys' offices, and were very territorial. I think this was Exhibit A for that proposition. But even with that, not playing well with other, U.S. attorneys' offices and other jurisdictions, this was a head scratcher. I mean, they would not even acknowledge whether or not they had anything. And why wouldn't they accommodate another prosecutorial, jurisdiction and say, yeah, we have it, or we don't have it, or, we've searched and there's nothing here. They wouldn't even do that. And we tried, and the state attorney's office seemed to have made a half-hearted attempt to try and get it. Mm. It was, we were at a loss. And while we got some things, like the state never even knew until we started deposing witnesses that the accuser, her sisters and friends, went out to the Justin Bieber concert within 2.5, 3 hours of this alleged horrific, brutal gang rape.
Yeah, so two things coming. One, I can clearly see where the defense, where you were going to go at a trial, and I can also understand why the state prosecutors seemingly had no choice, no other option but to drop this. I mean, it was quite problematic for them. I think the one point of confusion is, what exactly is Ohad's connection to the Alexander brothers? Is he actually a cousin? And also, is he going to play any role in their criminal cases? Do you know if he's going to be a witness of any kind?
He's not their cousin.
Okay. I only said it because one of the alleged victims had indicated that, right?
Yeah, and the state attorney echoed that at her press conference on December 11th, 2024, labeled him as their cousin. To clear things up, he was friends with them in New York at Douglas Elliman. They were, Ohad was not part of their team, let's say. He I think did very little. I don't even know if he did a deal with them at any point ever. Ohad came here from Israel in about 2014 and went to New York. He was he worked for Douglas Elliman. They worked for Douglas Elliman, and so they became friends. And when I say friends, they weren't the Alexander brothers had a wide circle of friends, so he was, he was in their orbit. But when he came to South Florida, they had no business together, or very little business together. I think they went to Ohad's wedding 6 months before before he was charged, and that was essentially it. I mean, they weren't good friends. They were, I would say, they were friendly. It's hard to, on a scale of 1 to 10, categorize their friendship. But that was it. Now, in terms of I think there's zero chance that he would be called as a witness in New York, because the New York allegations have nothing to do with this.
Right.
As far as the state, I mean, I wouldn't think they would want to call Ohad as a witness against them. They will be sorely disappointed with that testimony. So I just don't see any world in which Ohad is a witness on either side, because he does not remember what happened on 8. Now it's coming up on 9 years.
Jeffrey, before. Yeah, no, I hear you. And I want, before I let you go, as we're talking about this, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm just going to have to ask it anyway. Is there any legal recourse for your client to be compensated for what happened here? The answer is no, right? You can't go and sue you can't sue the state government, you can't sue the federal government, right? Is there any other legal recourse that I'm not thinking of for your client, who essentially had this, was accused, and then this case was dropped against him, and now he's picking up the pieces?
Well, I'll give you a lawyer's answer. We're exploring all possibilities.
Yes, that's a good lawyer's answer. Yeah, that is a good lawyer's answer. Okay, anything more you can give to us about what that means?
No, I really can't at this point, because I don't want to I don't want to reveal our strategy, but we're considering a lot of different things.
Well, listen, Jeffrey, thank you so much for taking the time, explaining a little bit more about the case, what your client has been going through and will be doing now. We really, really appreciate it. It's a case that we've been following closely. So, Jeffrey Sloman, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.